In the vast and tumultuous landscape of World War II, the United States emerged as a unique theater of war, not just in terms of battles fought on distant shores, but in the ideological conflicts that played out within its borders. By 1944, the U.S. had transformed into a crucial hub for the Allied war effort, an industrial powerhouse that simultaneously served as a sanctuary for prisoners of war, POWs. Across the nation, hundreds of POW camps were established, providing shelter and sustenance to thousands of German soldiers captured during fierce battles in Europe and North Africa. Among these camps was Camp Ellis, situated in the quiet and rural Fulton County, Illinois. Established in 1943, Camp Ellis was more than just a holding facility. It was a microcosm of military efficiency and an unexpected arena for cultural exchange and ideological confrontation. Camp Ellis was designed with military precision, reflecting the organizational prowess of the U.S. Armed Forces. The camp was sprawling, capable of accommodating up to 5,000 prisoners at any given time. Its layout was meticulously planned, featuring rows of barracks that housed the prisoners, a fully equipped hospital to tend to the medical needs of both prisoners and personnel, and recreational facilities that offered a semblance of normalcy in an otherwise controlled environment. The camp was guarded by units from the military police, ensuring security and order within its confines. However, life inside Camp Ellis was not characterized by idleness. According to the principles set forth by the Geneva Convention, prisoners of war were permitted to work, provided that their labor did not directly contribute to the war effort. This stipulation led to the POWs being engaged in a variety of labor-intensive activities, ranging from agricultural work to canning, and, for some, factory work in bustling urban centers such as Chicago. The integration of POW labor into the American wartime economy was a carefully orchestrated endeavor. The U.S. Army Provost Marshal General meticulously documented the logistics involved in this undertaking. German POWs were transported from Camp Ellis to various work sites through a well-established system of transportation logs. These logs ensured the efficiency and security of prisoner movements, with military escorts accompanying them to their destinations. This level of organization underscored the importance of integrating POW labor into the American industrial machine without compromising security or efficiency. Chicago, with its towering smokestacks and ceaseless hum of machinery, stood as the industrial heartland of America during this period. Here, in the midst of steel and sweat, German POWs arrived with deeply ingrained notions about the inefficiency of a racially diverse workforce. These beliefs were rooted in the toxic ideology of the Nazi regime, which exalted a homogeneous Aryan workforce as the pinnacle of industrial prowess. However, upon setting foot in the vibrant factories of Chicago, these preconceived notions were met with a stark and undeniable reality. Rather than scenes of chaos, the factories thrived as centers of productivity and innovation, driven by a workforce that was as diverse as it was skilled. Immigrants from Italy, Poland, and Ireland, alongside African-American workers and women, operated precision lathes and welding stations with a finesse that matched, if not exceeded, the capabilities of their German counterparts. The efficiency of these operations was a testament not only to the skill of the workers, but also to the collaborative environment that diversity fostered. The factories hummed with activity, where the whirring of machines was punctuated by the sounds of different languages mingling during lunch breaks. These breaks were a cultural tapestry in themselves, with workers sharing stories, laughter, and food, all beneath the watchful gaze of union posters that adorned the walls. These posters were more than just decorations. They symbolized the collective bargaining power that united the workers, transcending cultural and linguistic differences. For the German POWs, this environment was a revelation, a stark contrast to the rigid hierarchy and homogeneity they had been taught to admire. The food systems in place for the POWs working in these factories adhered to the rationing policies of wartime America. Although the rations were modest, they were sufficient to maintain the prisoners' energy levels and productivity. The wages for their labor were nominal, credited in the form of coupons that could be used at camp canteens. This system was designed to comply with international regulations, ensuring that the POWs contributed to the American economy without gaining undue advantage or disrupting the delicate balance of wartime resource allocation. Civilian attitudes towards the POWs varied significantly. While some local communities viewed the presence of enemy soldiers with suspicion and wariness, others approached the POWs with a sense of curiosity and, in some cases, camaraderie. Recorded incidents from the era reveal a spectrum of interactions between POWs and civilians, ranging from hostility to moments of unexpected kindness and understanding. These interactions were microcosms of the broader ideological conflict, reflecting the tension and eventual reconciliation between preconceived notions and lived experiences. Discipline within Camp Ellis was maintained through a structured system of rules and regulations. The POWs had access to medical care, and their correspondence was monitored in accordance with wartime policies. Educational programs, often facilitated by organizations like the YMCA, provided opportunities for intellectual engagement and skill acquisition. These programs were not merely distractions. They offered the POWs a chance to broaden their horizons and prepare for life after the war. As the conflict drew to a close, the process of repatriation and re-education began. Post-war directives outlined the procedures for returning POWs to their home countries, but not before efforts were made to expose them to democratic ideals and the benefits of a diverse society. This process was not one of indoctrination, but rather an opportunity for the POWs to observe firsthand the functioning of a society built on principles of inclusion and cooperation. They witnessed how a diverse population, united by common goals, could achieve remarkable feats of productivity and innovation. The experience of German POWs in American factories during World War II remains an unforeseen chapter in the annals of history. It was a chapter defined not by battles or bloodshed, but by the ideological dismantling of preconceived notions through exposure to a new way of life. Through the lens of logistics, labor policies, and camp systems, the POWs encountered a world where diversity, once seen as a source of weakness, revealed itself as a potent force for productivity and innovation. This experience challenged and ultimately altered the perceptions of those who witnessed it, leaving an indelible mark on the narrative of the war and the post-war world that emerged from its shadows. The adaptation of German prisoners of war, POWs, to life within the factories of Chicago during World War II marked a significant chapter in their wartime experience. As these men were integrated into the bustling American workforce, they faced a reality starkly different from the doctrines they had been taught back home. The factories, sprawling complexes filled with the sounds of machinery and the chatter of voices speaking a myriad of languages, operated with a precision and efficiency that rivaled any production line they had witnessed in Germany. This immersion into the American industrial landscape was both a cultural shock and an enlightening experience for the POWs. Upon entering the factory floor for the first time, the German POWs were struck by the immensity of the American war effort. The sheer scale of production was beyond anything they had imagined. Rows upon rows of machines hummed in unison, and the air was thick with the smell of metal and oil. The seamless coordination between workers was a testament to the efficacy of a diverse labor force. Italian machinists, Polish metalworkers, and Irish welders worked side by side, their tasks harmonized by shared objectives rather than shared origins. This environment functioned as a living contradiction to the principles of racial purity and superiority that had been ingrained in the POWs throughout their lives. The factory supervisors, many of whom were women, directed operations with an authority that commanded respect and compliance. These women, adept in their roles, managed the intricate logistics of wartime production with an expertise that challenged the POWs' preconceptions of gender roles. It was a jarring realization for many of them who had been raised in a society where women were rarely seen in positions of power. Yet, here in the factories of Chicago, women ensured that the production lines maintained their relentless pace, a necessity in a time when every piece of machinery contributed to the broader war effort against the Axis powers. During lunch breaks, the POWs found themselves surrounded by a cacophony of languages as workers from different backgrounds came together to share a meal. The workers, undeterred by linguistic differences, engaged in conversations that spanned personal anecdotes, union discussions, and even debates about the war. The presence of union posters advocating workers' rights and unity underscored the collective ethos that permeated the factories. This sense of solidarity, built on shared labor rather than shared ethnicity, was an unexpected revelation to the German soldiers, steeped as they were in the ideology of division. Despite their initial resistance to this new environment, some POWs began to acknowledge the advantages of such a collaborative system. They witnessed firsthand how productivity was not sacrificed at the altar of homogeneity. Instead, it was enhanced by the diverse skills and perspectives each worker brought to the factory floor. The blending of different cultures and experiences yielded an operational synergy that was both innovative and efficient. It was a powerful lesson in the strength of diversity, one that would linger in the minds of the POWs long after their return to Germany. The industrial output of these factories was nothing short of remarkable. The machinery and vehicles produced were a testament to the capabilities of a workforce drawn from every corner of Europe and beyond. The German POWs, many of whom had previously worked in factories back home, noted the differences in technological advancement and manufacturing techniques. American factories, driven by necessity and innovation, had implemented assembly line procedures and quality control measures that maximized output. The result was a continuous flow of war material that supported the Allied forces on multiple fronts. The POWs were participants in this industrial symphony, contributing to the production processes under supervision and receiving nominal wages that adhered to the wartime economy's constraints. As the war progressed, the POWs' exposure to the American way of life extended beyond the factory walls. Educational programs at Camp Ellis provided further insight into democratic ideals and the principles of equality that underpinned the society they found themselves in. These programs were structured to comply with the Geneva Convention and included lessons in the English language, American history, and geography. The aim was not only to engage the POWs productively, but also to offer them a glimpse into a different form of governance and social organization. The POWs found themselves grappling with new ideas and concepts, challenging the beliefs they had held for so long. The interactions between POWs and American civilians varied widely. In some instances, mutual curiosity fostered a sense of camaraderie, while in others, suspicion and animosity prevailed. These interactions were microcosms of the broader ideological struggle that defined the era. American civilians, many of whom had relatives fighting overseas, viewed the POWs with a mix of empathy and caution. The POWs, in turn, navigated these relationships with a pragmatic understanding of their circumstances. They were, after all, representatives of an enemy nation, but they were also men caught in the complexities of war, far from home and family. As the war drew to a close, the process of repatriation began. For many of the German POWs, the experience in America had been transformative. The ideological dismantling they underwent was not the result of direct confrontation, but rather the cumulative effect of observing and participating in a society that functioned on principles contrary to those they had been taught. The factories of Chicago, with their diverse workforce and innovative practices, stood as powerful symbols of this transformation. Upon their return to Germany, these POWs carried with them new perspectives shaped by their experiences. The realization that diversity could be a source of strength and not a weakness was a lesson learned through observation and participation in the American industrial effort. This understanding, born out of necessity and exposure, contributed to the broader post-war narrative of reconstruction and reconciliation. The insights they gained would influence their perceptions of the world and their place within it, highlighting the profound impact of cultural exchange even amidst the backdrop of conflict. In conclusion, the German POWs' exposure to the American industrial system during World War II served as a catalyst for reevaluating preconceived notions of race, productivity, and social organization. The factories of Chicago, with their multicultural workforce and female leadership, provided a practical demonstration of the power of diversity. As the POWs returned home, they carried with them insights that would influence their perceptions of the world and their place within it. This experience underscored the transformative power of cultural exchange and the potential for growth and understanding, even in the most challenging circumstances. It was a testament to the idea that even in times of conflict, there exists the possibility for learning, growth, and a reimagining of what is possible when people from different backgrounds come together to achieve a common goal. In the industrial expanse of Chicago during the height of World War II, a fascinating and unexpected scene unfolded that would forever alter the perceptions of those who witnessed it. German prisoners of war, POWs, captured and far from their homeland, found themselves transported daily from the confines of Camp Ellis to the bustling factories scattered across the city. As they journeyed through the urban landscape, they became spectators to a world that defied their expectations and challenged the very foundations of the beliefs they had been taught back in Germany. Each day, as the German POWs arrived at the factories, they were met with an environment that pulsed with an energy and efficiency that stood in stark contrast to the rigid, hierarchical systems they had known. The factories, rather than descending into chaos due to their diverse workforce, operated with a remarkable precision and productivity that seemed almost mechanical in its efficiency. The POWs, conditioned to believe in the superiority of racial purity and uniformity, were confronted with a working system that thrived on diversity and collaboration. On the factory floors, the POWs observed a tapestry of humanity, with workers from a myriad of backgrounds, Italians, Poles, Irish, and countless other immigrants working side by side. These individuals, who had often fled turmoil and oppression in their own countries, now stood shoulder to shoulder, mastering complex machinery with a proficiency that belied any notion of inferiority. It was a sight as jarring as it was enlightening for the German soldiers who had been taught to view such diversity with suspicion and disdain. The women in these factories, many of whom occupied supervisory roles, directed operations with authority and competence, challenging deeply ingrained preconceived notions about gender and leadership. In Germany, the idea of women in positions of power was still a radical concept, yet here in the American factories, it was a reality. The German POWs watched in awe as these women orchestrated the intricate ballet of production, ensuring that each component was crafted with precision and care. The sight of women leading with such confidence was a revelation, prompting the POWs to question the rigid gender roles they had been indoctrinated with. Within these factories, the rhythm of production was relentless. Precision lathes hummed with a steady, hypnotic cadence, while welding sparks flew like miniature fireworks, illuminating the determined faces of the workers. The air was thick with the scent of oil and metal, a testament to the industriousness that permeated every corner of the factory. The efficiency was not born of uniformity, but rather from a collective effort that drew strength from its diversity. Each worker brought unique skills and perspectives, contributing to an environment where innovation and creativity thrived. The German officers, indoctrinated with the belief that racial purity was the key to national strength, were confronted with a reality that starkly opposed this ideology. The factories were a melting pot of cultures, languages, and ideas, yet they operated with a harmony and purpose that was undeniable. The officers, who had been taught to view diversity as a weakness, now saw it as a source of strength and resilience. As the German POWs continued their work assignments, they noticed the camaraderie and solidarity among the factory workers. During lunch breaks, the air was filled with a symphony of languages, laughter, and the exchange of ideas. Union posters adorned the walls, advocating for workers' rights and fair treatment, concepts that were foreign to the German soldiers who had grown accustomed to a society that emphasized conformity and hierarchy. The sense of equality and mutual respect prevalent in the American factories was a revelation, one that planted seeds of doubt about the teachings they had so fervently believed. At Camp Ellis, educational programs further reinforced these observations. Classes focused on democratic principles, economic theories, and social equality. These sessions aimed to expose the German POWs to a broader understanding of governance and society, challenging the rigid doctrines they had known. The education was pragmatic, focusing on facts and historical context, and it was presented in a manner that encouraged critical thinking rather than blind acceptance. The intent was not to coerce or indoctrinate, but to inform, allowing the POWs to reach their own conclusions through observation and experience. Interactions with Americans outside the factory environment varied, adding a layer of complexity to the POWs' experiences. Some civilians approached the Germans with suspicion and hostility, a natural reaction given the ongoing war and the pain it had inflicted on so many. Yet, there were also instances of unexpected kindness and empathy. These encounters, though brief, highlighted the human capacity for understanding and compassion beyond ideological divides. The POWs grappled with these mixed messages, further complicating their perceptions of the enemy and challenging the black and white narratives they had been taught. As the war drew closer to its conclusion, the process of repatriation loomed on the horizon. For many of the German soldiers, the time spent in America had been transformative. The exposure to a society that valued diversity, equality, and innovation had left an indelible mark on their understanding of the world. Upon returning to Germany, these men carried with them new perspectives that would influence their roles in post-war reconstruction. In the aftermath of the conflict, some former POWs became advocates for democratic principles and economic reform in Germany. Their experiences in American factories and at Camp Ellis provided them with a model of cooperation and productivity that transcended racial and national boundaries. The ideological dismantling they had undergone was not an overtly emotional or dramatic event, but rather a gradual shift in understanding, driven by the environments and systems they had encountered. The story of these German soldiers and their time in American factories serves as a testament to the power of cultural exchange and the potential for change even in the most unlikely circumstances. It underscores the notion that exposure to diverse perspectives and ways of life can challenge deeply ingrained ideologies, paving the way for reconciliation and renewal in the aftermath of war. The experiences of these POWs highlight the importance of open-mindedness and the willingness to learn from others, illustrating how even small interactions and observations can lead to profound transformations. As these German soldiers returned home, they did so with a new understanding of the world and their place within it. They had witnessed firsthand the strength that comes from diversity, the innovation that arises from collaboration, and the resilience that is born from equality and mutual respect. Their time in the American factories had shown them a different way of living and working, one that valued individual contributions and celebrated collective achievements. In the years that followed, the impact of these experiences became evident in the roles these former POWs played in rebuilding their own country. They brought with them ideas of democracy, equality, and cooperation, helping to shape a new Germany that was more open, inclusive, and forward-thinking. Their journey from prisoners of war to advocates for change serves as a powerful reminder of the potential for growth and transformation, even in the most challenging of circumstances. Ultimately, the story of the German POWs in Chicago is one of hope and possibility. It is a story of how exposure to different ways of life can open minds and change hearts, leading to a deeper understanding of our shared humanity. In a world often divided by conflict and misunderstanding, it offers a glimpse of what can be achieved when we embrace diversity and learn from one another, working together to build a better future for all. As the German POWs continued their work within the American industrial landscape during World War II, their observations of the factory environment grew increasingly detailed and multifaceted. Initially anticipating chaos, they instead found themselves witnessing a harmonious symphony of movement, precision, and cooperation on the factory floor. Each worker, regardless of their origin, exhibited a mastery of their tasks that contradicted the POWs' ingrained beliefs about racial and gender hierarchies. The seamless integration of diverse ethnic groups, Italians, Poles, Irish, and others, into the workforce demonstrated an organizational efficiency that was both baffling and enlightening to the German soldiers. The factory floor was a marvel of modern industry, a vast space filled with the rhythmic clatter of machines and the steady hum of productivity. The POWs, accustomed to a rigid hierarchy and an emphasis on uniformity in the Wehrmacht, were taken aback by the fluidity and efficiency of the American production system. Workers moved with purpose and precision, their actions choreographed to the mechanical cadence of the assembly line. It was a display of human ingenuity where every piece of machinery was meticulously maintained and operated, ensuring that productivity remained high. The supervisors, many of whom were women, commanded respect not through fear or authoritarian tactics, but through their knowledge and competence. This leadership style starkly contrasted with the rigid hierarchy the POWs were accustomed to in the Wehrmacht. The women supervisors were not merely placeholders during the war effort. They were pivotal figures in maintaining the high standards and output of the factory. Their presence and authority challenged the POWs' deeply held beliefs about gender roles, further contributing to the dismantling of preconceived notions instilled by Nazi ideology. These women, clad in practical work attire, moved with an air of authority and confidence that was hard to ignore. They issued instructions with clarity and precision, their voices cutting through the din of the factory floor. It was a leadership style that emphasized collaboration and mutual respect, a far cry from the top-down command the POWs were used to. The women's ability to manage a diverse workforce, to resolve conflicts with diplomacy and tact, and to oversee complex operations was a revelation to the German soldiers. It was a living testament to the capabilities of women in roles traditionally dominated by men, challenging the POWs to reconsider their own biases and assumptions. During the lunch breaks, the POWs observed a vibrant tapestry of cultural exchange. The factory's canteen became a microcosm of the broader American society, where workers shared meals and stories in a multitude of languages. The canteen was a bustling hub of activity, filled with the rich aroma of diverse cuisines and the lively chatter of workers unwinding after hours of labor. Each table was a melting pot of cultures and backgrounds, where conversations flowed in a medley of accents and dialects. The walls adorned with Union posters spoke of solidarity and collective bargaining, a novel concept for the POWs who had been taught to value individual might and hierarchical obedience. The laughter and camaraderie among the workers, irrespective of their backgrounds, offered a glimpse into a society where diversity was embraced and celebrated rather than suppressed. Union meetings and gatherings were common, where workers discussed issues openly and collectively sought solutions. This sense of unity and shared purpose was a stark contrast to the individualistic and authoritarian mindset that had been instilled in the POWs by the Nazi regime. As the POWs continued their assignments, the efficiency of the American production system became increasingly apparent. The machinery, maintained with precision despite the heterogeneous workforce, operated at a pace that outstripped anything the Germans had witnessed in their own factories. This productivity was not the result of a homogeneous workforce, but rather the collaborative effort of individuals bringing unique skills and perspectives to the table. The German soldiers, tasked with maintaining the equipment, found themselves learning from the very people they had been taught to disdain. This experiential learning, unencumbered by ideological constraints, slowly eroded the foundations of their previous beliefs. The educational programs at Camp Ellis further facilitated this ideological shift. Classes on American history, government, and economics were offered, presenting the POWs with a narrative vastly different from the propaganda they had been exposed to in Germany. These programs, while initially met with skepticism, gradually engaged the POWs in critical thinking and reflection. The democratic ideals presented in these sessions highlighted the potential for a society where merit, rather than ethnicity or gender, was the measure of an individual's worth and contribution. These classes were held in modest classrooms with American instructors who were patient and knowledgeable. The POWs were encouraged to ask questions and engage in discussions, fostering an environment of intellectual curiosity and openness. The curriculum was designed to provide a comprehensive overview of American values and principles, emphasizing the importance of democracy, equality, and justice. The POWs found themselves grappling with concepts that challenged their worldview, prompting introspection and debate among their ranks. Interactions with American civilians added another layer to the POWs' evolving perceptions. While some encounters were tinged with hostility, reflecting the broader societal tensions of the time, many Americans displayed a willingness to engage with the POWs on a human level. Instances of kindness, such as shared meals or conversations about family and life before the war, showcased the common humanity that transcended national and cultural barriers. These interactions, while seemingly mundane, played a crucial role in reshaping the POWs' understanding of the world beyond the confines of their indoctrinated beliefs. The impact of these experiences was not uniform among the POWs. While some clung to their ideologies, resistant to change, others began to question and reflect on the validity of their previous assumptions. The exposure to a society where diversity was not only tolerated but seen as a strength planted seeds of doubt in the minds of many, prompting a reevaluation of their own identities and beliefs. This process of ideological dismantling was complex and multifaceted, influenced by the environments and systems they were immersed in rather than any overt attempts at persuasion or indoctrination. As the war drew to a close, the POWs began to contemplate their eventual return to Germany. The experiences in America had opened their eyes to alternative models of governance, economy, and society. While the long-term impact of these experiences remained uncertain, the potential for these individuals to carry back the lessons learned was undeniable. The exposure to democratic ideals, the efficiency of a diverse workforce, and the human connections forged in unexpected places all contributed to a transformation that, although unquantifiable, held the promise of influencing post-war Germany. The story of these POWs serves as a testament to the power of cultural exchange and the capacity for personal growth in the face of adversity. It underscores the notion that exposure to diversity and new perspectives can lead to profound shifts in understanding and ideology. As these German soldiers prepared to leave the factories of Chicago and return to a war-torn Europe, they carried with them the complex legacy of their time in America, a legacy that would play a role in shaping the future of their homeland. In the end, the narrative of the German POWs at Camp Ellis and the factories of Chicago is one of transformation and revelation. It highlights the intricate interplay between environment, experience, and ideology, demonstrating that even amidst conflict and division, there exists the potential for profound personal and societal change. The story of these soldiers, shaped by the diverse and dynamic milieu of wartime America, remains a powerful example of how exposure to diversity can challenge and ultimately transform deeply held beliefs. As the war concluded and the process of repatriation for the German POWs at Camp Ellis began, the long-term impact of their experiences in America slowly unfolded. Upon their return to a devastated Germany, these former soldiers found themselves in a nation grappling with the consequences of war and the challenge of reconstruction. The insights gained during their time in the diverse and industrious factories of Chicago did not immediately reshape post-war Germany, yet they planted the seeds for gradual change. Some of the returning POWs entered industries where they applied the collaborative and efficient practices they had observed in the United States. They advocated for inclusive work environments, recognizing that a diverse workforce could drive innovation and productivity. Others participated in local and national discussions about governance, drawing on their exposure to democratic principles and social equality to inform their perspectives. The ideological shifts experienced by these individuals were subtle and varied, influenced by personal encounters and the operational systems they had engaged with during their captivity. For many, the American experience had broadened their understanding of leadership, community, and the power of collective effort. These lessons, although not uniformly adopted or immediately transformative, contributed incrementally to the broader post-war reconstruction efforts and the evolving German society. The story of the German POWs in America is a testament to the potential for growth and adaptation when individuals are exposed to diverse environments. It illustrates how, even in the aftermath of conflict, new perspectives can emerge from unexpected places, fostering a slow but meaningful process of change. The legacy of their experiences endures as a reminder of the capacity for resilience and renewal, highlighting the enduring impact of cultural exchange and the shared pursuit of progress in a world seeking to heal from the ravages of war.